Hey Lovies, in today's channel I have 4 really awesome Halloween expensive dupes that you guys can do on a tiny budget. Okay, so the first dupe that we're going to do is the beloved Mackenzie Child's Aurora Pumpkin. I have seen actually other pumpkins from Mackenzie Child, but I really love the Aurora type because it has petals on the top, which makes it very pretty. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating the base. I noticed that the Aurora pumpkin, it's more white than it is this cream color with a little bit of yellow. So I'm going in here now and just repainting it. I'm also coming in with a bunch of colors, green, purple, you'll see some orange. So one of the biggest tips that I can give you when we're DIYing is to really pay attention to detail. I am by far the expert on Mackenzie Child reproductions, let's just say, but I do know that a lot of DIYers, they really miss important detail. So if you look closely to the Aurora pumpkin, you see a bunch of colors and lines within the squares. So take the time to just really do this. And here you see that I'm taking a fan brush and making it a little bit softer and not so harsh. Really take your time with details. That's how you can get a fantastic dupe. Next, I'm taking a glossy cardstock and just cutting some petals, a little bit larger size than the original Mackenzie Child. So here I'm just tracing the bigger petals and the smaller petals. And again, if you look closely, you'll see some embossing on the petals from the original one. So I'm basically just taking a stick skewer and just hand embossing my petals. Next, the Aurora pumpkin has circular details to its petals. What we're going to do is replicate that easily with a hot glue gun. And don't worry about the strings. Once the glue dries, you can go back and rub it off. Next, I'm taking the Folk Art gold paint. The gold metallic paint that they have is awesome. So I noticed the Aurora pumpkin has a bunch of colors. It has gold, white and blue and orange. So you're going to want to replicate that. Again, my petals are bigger because I personally wanted them to, but if you were cutting them smaller, very similar to the original, then you would have a lot more colors to play with. Next to be painted is the smaller petals. So when I look at the original picture, it's pretty much orange and yellow, which is super simple. If you dip your brush on one side in the orange and one side in the yellow, you'll definitely have a better blending technique. And here's a little close-up of all the work that we've done on the petals. Super cute and really resembles the original. When it comes to Mackenzie Child's pattern, it's really important that you lay out your groundwork first. I often don't see DIYers doing this step, and it's really important that you do this. So here, I'm doing about 2 to 3 inches apart, and you'll see me kind of put notches in the pumpkin. Once it's all done, it should look like this. So now you have a little bit more of a groundwork to put all of your checker patterns. Here, I'm just painting within my line work and doing the infamous Mackenzie Child checkered print. You'll notice that the black part of the checkers also do have some white to gray striping, very faint. So go ahead and put that detail in there too. I'm telling you, a little detail goes a long way when you're trying to dupe. While that's drying, we're going to go back to our petals and cut them out. What's nice about glossy cardstock is that you can fold them with your finger. So you'll see me do that after I cut this off. I really love that effect because it really makes it look like petals on top of your pumpkin. This next step is totally optional, but I do love using this dress ink. So if you have dark brown or maybe black, it's a really good point to finish off your clippings. We're almost done with our pumpkin. So the next step here is to take all of your petals and glue them on. So I'm trying to glue them on in the fashion that they look like in the Aurora pumpkin, but super easy. You're going to remember, fold the paper around your finger to give it that bump out look. You're going to do that with the bigger petals. You're going to do that with the smaller petals too. The smaller petals on the Aurora pumpkin have a really pretty stone on them. So the best way I can replicate this is using my stash and gluing some pearls. In between the pearls, I'm also gluing down some beads so you won't see any of the petals underneath. My next tip is using gloss. A lot of DIYers don't tell you this, and it gives your project such a professional finished look. And you guys, I'm loving the finished product. This was made with a $2 Walmart pumpkin. We saved boatloads of money from the original price of $165. What do you guys think? I love Grandin Road. Obsessed with the website. When I saw their Halloween catalog, I immediately fell in love with these Zoe planters. They are beautiful and just have that Tim Burton Beetlejuice vibe. But I knew that we can do something very similar for cheap, and you can't believe how much we paid for this. I'm pretty sure you can guess. To get a zigzag or plaid or anything like that, I always use the painter's tape, and you'll see a lot of DIYers do this very technique that I'm doing. So to get a zigzag, you're going to cut like distances strips, and you're going to alternate them using another piece of tape like you see that I'm doing here. This makes sure that all of the spacing in between your zigzag are the same. So it's a little bit tedious, but so worth the effort. When you're done laying down your strips, you want to press firmly so that way you're prepping it for the spray paint. And when you see I'm doing here, I've chosen a glossy white only because I want to replicate the Zoe planter, but you can absolutely do any color you want. Orange and black would be really nice. The possibilities are endless. The next step is one of my favorite parts and is peeling off the tape. So you see here, when we peel it off, we are left with a pretty much shiny black from the original pot. If you have any bleeding, you can easily go in here and just wipe some of it off with a damp cloth, or you can go back in and do some detailing. This leads me to my third tip: take your time. I want to scream it through the rooftops. Take your time. I don't understand why DIYers are so rushed to get their projects done. It's not a race, you guys. If you want to duplicate a very expensive item like something from Grandin Road or something from Mackenzie Child, you have to remember that these things are expensive because there's a lot of detail and hand paint that goes into it. The more you hand paint and take your time with products, the better your dupe is going to be. I guarantee it. And again, with my previous tip, we're going to come in with some gloss to finish the job. So a lot of times when you're painting, it still looks dull. Like, look how nice and shiny this is. It just looks professional. You guys, I'm loving the planter with my mums. It's just so festive. I'm loving it. And guess what? It was free to make. The next dupe I have is a super fun one, and it's the Beisel Vintage Pumpkin. Now, personally, I do own a lot of Beisel die cuts. So if you're like me and was a kid in the 90s, or a really young child in like the late 80s, your home probably had these Beisel die cuts. So I know from firsthand how expensive these pure vintage die cuts are. So basically, if you're wanting that look and you're wanting to get that nostalgia feeling, all you have to do is grab a pumpkin from the Dollar Tree. This particular Beisel that we're trying to replicate has really nice big round eyes. So just grab anything. I think what I'm using here is some hairspray and just circle around the eyes. Pretty much with any vintage pumpkin, you're gonna get a triangle nose, and then you can really just end it with a mouth of kind of the shape that you want, but I'm really trying to duplicate this one Beisel pumpkin. So if you have a photo next to you, it's super easy to kind of copy. The next step is pretty easy since we have our line work done. I'm pretty much going to go in and paint as I see in my reference photo. This Beisel pumpkin cutout is super easy, and it only takes a few colors. So if you have orange, black, yellow, white, and green, so that's basically all you need to repaint this Dollar Tree pumpkin. And again, you guys, when you paint this, it's going to take a couple coats unless you have some really nice acrylic paint. So if you want to keep this on the cheaper side, you're going to want to get some craft paint that's 50 cents to $1. But be sure that you have the time to really do a couple coats. Again, this isn't a race. If you want something really nice to hang in your home, then you're going to want to take your time. So apply, it could be 2, even 3 coats, but it's well worth it, trust me. Next, we're going to be putting in the details of some lines that I see in the reference photo. So it's basically just mimicking the arches of the pumpkin. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And we're back with the spray paint. But this one, it really needs it. because not only does spray paint look professional, but it really brings out the vibrancy in your colors. So the orange just pretty much comes alive when you spray paint this. Next tip that I have is lining your work, but make sure if you're lining with a permanent marker to do it after your spray paint. If you're following along with me and you're going to be spray painting your projects, I learned the hard way that it bleeds terribly. Spray paint your project, make it nice and smooth, and come at the end and do the finishing touches, and look how cute he's looking. Honestly, you guys, this brings back all the memories, and it's wood, and it costs $1. Like, check this out. It's literally almost the same. Okay, so our last dupe has to be my absolute favorite. So I've been obsessed with these Grandin Road witch wreaths forever. So when I found a dupe already from Michaels, I believe they're $35.99 on sale. However, if you have a 20% off coupon for sale items, which I did, I got it for even cheaper. So the Michaels version of this wreath isn't really that bad. It's just missing a lot of detail. So if you're a Grandin Road fan, you will know that the detail here is really, really well done. That's why it's so expensive. So this wreath I know costs about $287 on their website. So basically what I'm doing here is that I'm simply just going to repaint it. Again, have a reference picture and really take your time. And I'm doing some blending here with my finger. That's a really good tip for if you are having a hard time blending. Lay out some of your colors and easily blend it with your finger. Your finger, even though we used to do finger painting as a kid, it really is an awesome tool if you know how to use it. And don't forget when you're painting to add some of the details. So I know that I have to come back in and add the swart. I have to add some of the nostrils, have to add some shading and some highlights. So really take a look at your reference picture and make sure that you're getting all the details down. The lips on the Michaels wreath was horrible. The whole thing, honestly, it has a good mold, like the witch itself is nice, but the paint job is terrible. And it's gotten a bunch of bad reviews because of that. And primarily, the worst spot of the wreath was the lips. So once the lips are all shaded, then we can go ahead and start the eyes. The eyes are already painted and lined them. I can kind of see where the iris and pupil was, but before we do that, we do want to add some shading to the actual whites of the eyes. So no surprise here, I'm coming in with some top coat, but I'm paying attention to cover the hair because really all I want to do is just bring out the vibrancy of the green and the rest of the black and orange from the wreath. Now the original Grandin Road wreath has a puffy hat, but I decided to just color in the stars because I do love the hat the way it is. Also, you will see that the stripes are a different color, but my home just happens to be orange and black. So really those two components I left alone, but if you took some more time, you can even make it more look like the original. The Michaels version has black and gray hair, which I do love. That adds a bunch of texture as opposed to the Grandin Road wreath. However, the Grandin has raffia hair, which I did still want to incorporate. So I gave the witch her side bangs, which I saw in my reference photo. And she also has long, distressed type of raffia hair coming down. So here you just see me kind of fraying it so that way you can get that look. Okay, so the last step here is to tease the black and gray hair and add a leaf. So the Grandin Road has a leaf on her hair. It's orange, and I had some orange ones, but they were a little too realistic. I opted for a redder tone that had glitter. And you guys, I'm crushing on this wreath. I feel like I have a Grandin wreath in my home and I paid a fraction of the price. Actually $35.99 on sale. And thank you guys so much for watching, and let me know which one is your favorite down below.